All right, so first things first, this workout is designed to be very beginner friendly, but still has certain modifications so you could decrease the intensity or increase the intensity, which I'm going to be explaining later on in the video. Now, as far as these videos goes, which I believe I mentioned it was going to be in 2 parts. The first one being this one, where I'm going to demonstrate every single exercise, essentially give you the whole workout, but include where you can make it less intense or more intense depending on how you're feeling that day, or even depending on what skill level you currently are at. And then the part 2 video is going to be me actually going through the workout in its entirety, as well as also giving some cues and modifications during it. But that way, it's kind of like you're having a little workout buddy. And this workout is designed to not have any equipment whatsoever. The only thing you will probably need is some water to stay hydrated, and maybe a towel depending on if you have a very slick surface, which I don't recommend. This workout is designed to be able to be done at your home and without any usable pull-up bar, no bands, no nothing, just completely pure body. Now, as far as the way it's going to be kind of structured, warm up, we're going to have a couple of exercises, each about 30 seconds apiece. Then again, remember with this warm up, it's really just to get your body starting to move. We're not necessarily going for an intensity in there, so be very careful with that. And on top of that, the workout itself, I really need you to listen to your body. If you're feeling hurt, if you're feeling like elbow pain, wrist pain, knee pain, anything like that, I want you to stop and wait until it doesn't hurt anymore, and then actually maybe go check with your doctor, kind of see what's wrong, because I can't be there in person to personally coach you. So this is kind of me just making sure that it can cover as many skill levels as possible. So listen to your body and make sure that you know what muscles are going to be targeted with each exercise, which I will be also talking about during the actual video. And as far as for the actual workout portion, it's going to be split into 3 sections with 3 exercises per section for 3 rounds. So we're going to have 3 exercises. After we complete those, 45 seconds apiece, we're going to move on to a little rest cycle, which is going to be about 45 seconds as well. And that's just going to be some time to shake things out, get a little drink of water, maybe wipe off some sweat, you know, completely to whatever you want to use that rest time for, so long as you keep moving. I don't want you to stay still, because then your body's going to end up cooling down. We're going to do this in every single section until we get 3 rounds in total. Now this is where the intensity is going to come in. If you want high intensity, you're really feeling good that day, then try some of the more challenging options that I'm going to be giving you here. If you want it to be less intense, maybe you're just getting back to working out, kind of like myself, you know, with the whole quarantine, there's going to be quite a few modifications to take it a little easier that day. Also, on a side note, I know the camera is going to be slanted in certain parts, so bear in mind with me on that. All right, but that's enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and get to the actual video. But before I do, don't forget to like, subscribe. It really does help me a lot. Hit that notification bell so you get updated every time I do upload. Now I'm pretty much uploading whenever I can, if I can. So let's go. All right, so we're gonna start off with a nice little light jog. And with this jog, don't really try to go for intensity here. We're just trying to get our body warmed up. We're gonna be doing several exercises for about 30 seconds apiece. Next up, we've got jogging again with our knees going out, really getting those hips nice and open, still keeping it pretty light. All right, so next up we got butt kickers, really making sure that we're keeping our knees close together and we're getting a little bit of more hamstring action with this and avoiding our knees trying to flare out. All right, so next up we got air squats. Now with these squats, make sure that when you're squatting, this is gonna be also dependent on how your hips are, just how your body is in general. When you go down, I do want your knees to be going in the same direction as your toes. Make sure they're not caving in, make sure they're not going outwards. Making sure to squeeze your core, keep your body up straight. You can even use your hands as a counterbalance. You should really start feeling this in your quads right now. Inhaling when you're going down and then exhaling coming back up. So next up we got some arm circles going forward at first. Really getting the shoulders to get nice and warmed up. And the next up we got arm circles again, except we're going to go backwards this time. You know, I want to make sure we get the entirety of that shoulder warmed up. If this is a little too much right off the bat, feel free to shake it out for a few seconds and then come back in. And next up we got Frankensteins. I remember doing these all the time in high school. So opposite leg, opposite arm. Now your hand and your toes don't necessarily have to touch, just enough so you get a little bit of rotation. And we got step overs. So try to imagine that you're stepping over a fence. I'm gonna try to draw a little picture here to kind of give you a better view or like a better visual representation. Hopefully it comes out pretty good. So coming outwards towards the inside. And next up we got same thing, step overs, except we're going backwards this time. Now Even though it's the same movement, except we're just moving backwards this time, it's also going to require a little bit of cognitive function, because for the most part, most people aren't really used to moving in a backwards direction. So we're getting that mental and physical aspect in there. And next up, we got reachers. Now reachers going to help stretch the back out slightly. Make sure you're not leaning too far forward when you pull the hands back. And then real quick, 30 seconds, we're going to do a little bit of shakers, just shaking everything out before we get into the actual workout. You can even take this time, maybe take a quick sip of water, maybe brush off some sweat, and make sure that you stay hydrated. All right, so starting off, we're going to be doing squat holds. Now, we're going to be holding for about 2 to 3 seconds at the bottom. Other than that, it's the same thing as the squat as we did in the warm-up, except adding a little more intensity by holding it down at the bottom. Now, I want you to hold at about 90 degrees. I don't want you to go all the way down to the point where you're just kind of sitting down. I want you to hold to the point where you can feel that slight burning sensation in the quads, just so you can really feel that your quads are really getting activated. If this is a little too much right off the bat, feel free to go back to regular squats. Same concept, except now we're not doing that hold at the bottom. Remembering to inhale when you're going down, exhaling when you're coming back up. Now, if you want to make this even harder, go ahead and do the squats. We're not going to do the hold, but this time we're going to add a little jump into it. Now, obviously, if you want to make it even harder, go for height when you do jump. Making sure, though, when you're landing, try to land as quietly as possible. Landing on the toes and then coming back down on the heels. All right, so next up, we got the push-ups. Now, your regular traditional push-ups, you want to make sure that your elbows are kind of going backwards at about a 45-degree angle. Kind of like your body is in the shape of an arrow. This way, you're going to really focus more on the chest. If your arms are too wide and they're practically on line with each other, they're going to have more of a chance of injuring your shoulder. If they're too close to the body, then they're going to be focusing a lot more on the triceps instead of the chest. So you really should be feeling this in the chest right here. Now, make sure to engage the core, squeeze your abs, keep your body straight, avoid too much head leaning forward. Otherwise, you're going to get some nasty neck cramps later on. Squeeze the glutes to help keep your hips down. Making sure to inhale going down, exhaling coming back up. And if this is a little too much, I want you to switch to a knee push-up. Now, same concept, except you're just on your knees. Also, if you're doing it on a hard floor like I am in this video right now, I strongly recommend you get something for padding. If not, it shouldn't be really too much of an issue, but everybody's knees are going to be different. If you want to make this a little harder, we have push-up with the raises. We're going to be essentially the same thing as a push-up, but when you come up, you're going to raise the opposite leg, opposite arm. Also, keeping in mind that when you're doing this, you really want to make sure that your hips are still parallel to the ground. So try to avoid too much hip sway. If you do have too much, I want you to come back down to just plain push-ups, because at that point, your body is going to be rocking too much to the left and right, and depending on what surface you're doing this on, depending on if you're sweating, your hand might slip and you might injure yourself. So if that does happen, I want you to come back straight down to push-ups without the raise. All right, so next up for this first section, we got body drags. As far as the name sounds weird, and as far as weird as the exercise actually looks, it's actually a great exercise to kind of get your lats involved. Now, just think of it as you're doing a pull-up, but on the ground, or dragging your body across. Now, if you've got a slick surface, this works very well. If you've got a carpet area, still works very well. Essentially, picking up your chest, making sure that you're not scrunching up your shoulders, and just essentially body dragging yourself across the ground. Now, to make this even harder, you can go for reach, essentially extending your arms as far as possible and then pulling yourself forward. Or what you can do is shorten the distance. And that way it's a little less intense, and it kind of just at least gives you a chance to kind of get your body the feeling of the actual exercise. If you want to make it even harder, like maybe crank it up to like a level 3, then go ahead and try to do it with one arm. I tried it during the video, did not work out for me. I'm not at that level yet. But that's the great thing about this. There's levels for everyone. The next up, we're going to have a 45-second rest before we get into section 2. And I really want you to make sure that you're taking your time to kind of get your breath back under control. Take a sip of water, wipe away some sweat, but do not stop moving. All right, so for section 2, first exercise is going to be knees to elbows. Really working to get that rotation in. So real quick, since your hands are behind your neck right here, I don't want you pulling on your neck. I want you to just have them there to kind of have them have a place so that you can keep them together, but also be able to get a nice little rotation, bringing your knees to your elbows. Going to be feeling this a lot in the abs here. Now, If you kind of want to slow it down, that's perfectly fine. That way you're still getting the exercise, getting still a little bit of that rotation in, but you're just shortening the range of motion. If you want to pick up the speed a little bit, make it a little more intense, you're more than welcome to do that as well, depending on how you're feeling. Just make sure that you don't lose your balance. I almost lost my balance twice during this video, so be very careful with that. Alright, so next up we got planks. Planks, we already know that it's going to work the abs like crazy, where 45 seconds is going to feel like a lifetime. I want you to make sure that you're keeping your hips nice and square to the ground. Make sure that your hips are low, head is not arching too far forward, and making sure to breathe throughout this entire exercise. Now, if this is kind of hurting your forearms or this just doesn't feel right on your arms, feel free to come up to a high plank. A little less intense, but still getting that nice workout and really working your abs. If you want to increase this even more, go ahead and do some plank raises. Now, these are going to require you to kind of keep your hips a little more stable, really starting getting your abs, avoiding any form of hip sway when you're coming up or going back down, and really pacing yourself here. This one in particular is pretty difficult, just to make sure keeping your hips parallel to the ground. Alright, so next up we're going to be on the ground. What I like to call these are in and out knee twists. Now, essentially we're going to be pushing with our feet on both sides twice and then alternating to the opposite side. Now when you bring them in, feel free to take a slight little second rest before kicking your feet back out, and then doing this on each side. If this is a little too much, I want you to do one leg at a time. Or if you want to make it even harder, keep both legs in the air throughout this whole exercise. Trust me, you're going to feel it on your oblique. Alright, and then we got 45 seconds before we head into our next round. Remembering, grab a sip of water, wipe some sweat off, do not stop moving. Keep moving, keep the heart rate up. Alright, so for our last little section here, our first exercise is going to be lunge hops. Essentially, as the name implies, you're going to be in a lunge while hopping, alternating legs each time. Really going to be feeling this in your quads, getting a little more plyometrics in, making sure that when you're doing this, that ideally you want your torso to be up straight. And doing this, pretend like there's a rope attached to your back and that it's pulling it slightly back. So avoiding leaning too much forward, although that may happen just depending on how flexible you are at the time. Now, if this is a little too much, same concept, except do it with the step through. So you're taking out the jumping aspect and you're really just stepping through each lunge. If you want to make this a little more intense, go ahead and throw your arms up. Trust me, this is going to make a big difference on how this exercise feels. But remember to choose which one is going to work for you. Now up next we have a low push-up hold. Essentially we're going to be holding a push-up down at the bottom for about 2 to 3 seconds and then coming back up. Still inhaling going down and then exhaling when you're coming back up. I want you to go back to regular push-ups if this is too much for you. This was quite a bit for me even while I was doing the exercise. Alright, and now if you want to make this even more intense, go ahead and hold that bottom position for 5 to 10 seconds or 10 to 15 seconds. Going to really be dependent on how long you want to stay down there. If you can stay down there for the full 45 seconds, you're a lot stronger than me. But still, making sure that you're listening to your body and that nothing is hurting that shouldn't be hurting, like your wrists, elbows, anything of that manner. Next up, we have another kind of weird exercise that you probably haven't seen, which is going to work out your upper back. We're going to be holding these for 2 to 3 seconds at the top, really bringing our chest up, not using our legs whatsoever. All we're doing is driving through our elbows, really bringing that upper back off the ground. Holding for 2 to 3 seconds at the top. If this is a little too much, don't do the hold, just go straight up and then straight down. Now, same thing as with the low push-up holds, go ahead and hold it for a longer time. Maybe 5 to 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. Maybe hold it for the whole time if you can. Completely dependent on you. And with that, we have 45 seconds rest again. Now, we went through that whole entire round one time, and we got to do it 2 more times. So I really hope you've been pacing yourself this whole time. All right, so once we have completed our entire 3 rounds, we're going to go ahead and cool down about a couple little stretches for about 15 to 25 seconds. Not too much since we're already pretty warmed up. First thing we're going to be doing is ankle rotations. We're going to be going in both directions, about 15, 20 seconds each side. And next up, we got the quad stretch. I like to have my hand out for balance. If you have a chair, feel free to use that. Keeping the knees together, bringing the legs straight, backing up. You're going to be feeling this nice in the quads. Up here, we're going to be bringing our hands together, extending them forward, really rounding up that upper back, getting a nice little stretch there. And then we're going to be doing these nice little, what I like to call personally, world reachers. Essentially, reaching out in front of you, bringing it across, getting a nice torso stretch, and also getting a little bit of stretch in those lats. And during the workout, we're going to be doing this a few times. Now, if you've watched P90X in the past, I'm pretty sure you've seen this chest stretch. You're going to be feeling this as when you're really driving your elbows as if they're scratching the back of the wall. And we're going to be doing these as well a couple times throughout the actual workout. Now with this wall chest stretch, I do not recommend doing it on the mirror. It was the closest thing to my actual outlet, which I had my camera connected to. So strongly recommend a wall or a doorway. Really getting inside that chest, making sure to stretch it out. We're going to be doing this on both sides. Again, about 15 to 25 second hold. So that's the entire workout, and I will see you on workout day.